I wanted to take a moment to address something very important. In this episode, my commentary around the transgender community is misinformed, poorly articulated, and harmful. The impact of my words hurt people, and for that, I am deeply sorry. I take full responsibility for what I said. Regardless of my intent, I spoke without the understanding, care, and respect this topic deserves. I want to be very clear. I support the dignity and humanity of trans people and all genders, sexualities, and races. I do not support hate or exclusion. My words fail to reflect that, and that failure is on me. One of the most powerful things about this community is that it is founded on love, and it's open-minded, inclusive, and caring. I did a disservice to those core values and never want anyone to feel unsafe or not seen. The current state of affairs weighs heavily on both Dorian and myself as it does others. And the intent of this episode was to acknowledge the very troubling things occurring in our country right now, while also exploring questions of how did we get here, how can we move forward, and is there a way to create space for conversation across those differences to find a path forward together. While I did not have ill intent, my attempt to personally relate to a complex topic was poorly expressed and insensitive. In my mind, I was empathizing with struggling to belong as a child based on my own circumstances, while also considering difficult decisions parents make in support of their kids, and realized that none of it landed well. I also want to acknowledge something important that happened in real time during the conversation. Dorian challenged me directly when I was wrong. He pushed back clearly and respectfully. And that moment reflects what this discussion is meant to model. That disagreement does not have to mean hostility, and accountability can happen in conversation and after. I do take full accountability, and by leaving this episode up, acknowledge the opportunity to address what occurred and to grow, while also highlighting some of the more positive elements, such as the ability to have discourse when you do not agree with someone, denouncing what is happening with ICE and our current administration, and hopefully underscoring my hope that we can move forward with more unity. I am grateful to those around me and in our community who have had open conversations with me around this. I'm committed to listening, learning, and acting with more care, more humility, and responsibility going forward. I'd also like to invite anyone who wants to have a conversation with me or Dorian. We're committed to speaking with members of these communities to dispel ourselves of the many myths and misinformation that have taken root in the public discourse. Since I started this podcast, there's been a link at the top of every episode description that sends a text directly to my phone. With that, I will issue a trigger warning should you choose to continue to listen. Thank you.
Guess I don't know why we're going to talk about this, but I think we probably should, just because a lot of things have happened. So we're going to dip a toe into the deep waters of socio-political chaos. I know you probably have a lot to say about this. I have something to say about it, but it's probably not what you expect. So speaking to people hitting me up about things, because I get a lot of random messaging from people from time to time. And so like kind of, with the whole prismatic fleet thing, right? I had a bunch of people being like, why aren't you posting about this? Are you not involved? This, that. And I just kind of, things are happening. But so one of the things that I've been hit up about recently that I find very interesting is that I think there is a small portion of people who've decided to write me off because I listen to Joe Rogan. And it's an interesting thing, because at no point have I ever said that I agree with everything that Joe Rogan says or does, but I listen to him. And this is my segue into the real stuff that's going on. But I want to I want to preface all of this with a sort of counter, very delicate approach, I suppose. So I think that there's a big problem in this country, probably more so than in other parts of the world. I'm not really sure, because it doesn't seem like there is as much of a unrest when it comes to identity politics,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I guess that would be the best way to put it. But it does appear to me that identity has become weaponized on both sides. And I think when we look at things that are occurring in our country, like the stuff going on in Minnesota and abroad, a lot of it boils down to identity. And it's troubling to say the least. And it's frustrating as well because people tend to cling to their identity to justify their actions. And I think this happens on both sides. So I'm going to tell a quick little story, and I hope that it makes sense. But I thought about this last night, and I was trying to figure out a way to broach this topic in a personal way because my grandparents were immigrants, and they did things the right way, I presume, but I have no real honest clue if they did or not. But also the right way was very different 60, 70 years ago than it is now. And when you look at all of the troubling stuff that's happening, it's easy to say those guys are wrong. Very easy to say that. They are very wrong. The hard thing to say is, how the fuck did we get here? That's like the difficult conversation, right? It's easy to point fingers. It's easy to vilify someone. It's easy to draw a line in the sand. But the hard thing to do is to have like real like reflection and say, how the fuck did we get here? How and why is this all happening? And I've thought about how identity has become this like weapon of mass destruction. It is the biggest problem that we face in this country, more so than any foreign threat, more so than anything else. I think identity has become a weapon of mass destruction, and we get manipulated by outside people because they see us infighting constantly, and they say, "Oh, let's add fuel to this fire." And so the I think when I kind of zoom out and I look at how everything is playing out, right? I see how the right and our president has
It's hard to get
has
that one out. Yeah.
has used identity to strengthen his audience. He created a villain, so to speak, out of immigrants, and his base has solidified through this common cause of like, we have to deal with immigrants as a whole, right? And then you see the people on the left who have used identity to create, purpose in causes to help you know, help certain groups of people. But in turn, it's actually fragmented the foundation of that side, right? And it's like a weird thing because identity politics has become this like primary talking point way more often than like, what's the good of the country? It's like, what's going to solve our problems? Oh, this group of people is ruining our country, or this group of people needs help, or this group of people is responsible for something that's people halfway across the world are dealing with. It's like anti-Semitism has become like this insane thing again in our country, which is mind-blowing to me. Yes, there's terrible things going on in the Middle East, but the Jewish people in our country aren't responsible for that, but yet they're feeling the effects of it. the LGBTQ community has become a cause for the left, but in the course of trying to help different groups of people, they've actually alienated other groups of people. Um, and then you have the right that are just like, let's shut this all down and get them all out of here. And there's now a large group of people that are okay with all of the craziness that's going on. And it's all very dark and ugly and concerning. Um, and I don't know how we move forward from it because it doesn't seem like anyone wants to address the real issue, and that is the weaponization of identity. What do you think about that, Dorian?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a excellent point. Something that definitely needs to be discussed quite a bit, and I'm sure will continue to be discussed and dissected for many, many years after this to figure out the core question you brought up, which is how the fuck did we get here?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like identity is kind of, I mean, it's a huge thing and it's become the focal point of this, but you know, as it's a specific thing that's kind of weaponized in a broader context, which is like always the context of this type of stuff, which is submission and dominance. You know, and identity is being used as a way to say like this group of people is beneath us, you know, on the right. And once again, this is, as with so much stuff that's happening with the Trump administration, this is 100% taken directly from the Nazi playbook. That was exactly how they went about it. This is like literally beat for beat the exact same thing that they've been doing. So, you know, that's obviously very concerning. You know, and in a way, I feel like a lot of what's going on with the left, you know, with identity and this idea that like we really need to take pride in and really be sort of, you know, fiercely, I don't know, whatever the identity version of nationalistic is, individualistic, you know, in response to that, because we're being told that, you know, this large group of people and these powerful politicians are saying that, no, like anybody who is this is beneath you and can be trounced by you or treated however you feel to because you're superior to them, that the people who are being identified as that are clinging to that identity as a way of saying, fuck you. No, I am this way and that's fine. And I'm just as good as you. And frankly, maybe even better. But you know, but at the same time, you know, it's part of that whole game. Like that response from the left, I think is equally as calculated as the right's initial sort of salvo of hatred. That they're kind of relying on us to defend ourselves as a way of stoking, you know, essentially unrest by continuing to oppress us even when we take pride in ourselves. So, you know, what's going on is like the explosion of all of that, you know, those forces coming into conflict with each other now that there is essentially like a privatized military force within the government that's there to push forth what can only be construed as white nationalist or white supremacist Christian nationalist ideals onto these populations, where obviously the things that they say are happening are not happening. We have all the video evidence in the world, and straight out of fucking 1984, they're telling you not to believe what you see and hear.
Yeah.
You know, it's completely insane, but yeah, I mean, identity has certainly been weaponized within this, and as I said, like as a way of getting to these larger issues of submission and dominance, which are really like what everything always comes down to, because that's power, right? It's all about power. It's, you know, money is an easy thing to point to, you know, and even race is an easy thing to point to within this. But as we're seeing, it's about much more than race. It's about this just larger idea of groups of people saying that they are superior to other groups of people, whether that be due to sexual orientation or race or other social factors, you know, like in India with the whole caste system, you know, everybody there, they all look the same, but they've still decided, no, this group of people is better than this group of people. So, you know, it's always all around the world and like throughout history, that's like always what it's come down to. Identity has been used as this way of like asserting control over a group of people. And now we're in a place where in a lot of these other situations in the past, the people who were being subjugated were not emboldened enough or in a position to really stand up for themselves. But in America, we do, have a very intense sense of individual pride, and that's been kind of culturally built into us as Americans. Is like, hey, you're American, you can do whatever you want, you live in the land of the free, all this type of stuff. So now that all of that is being stripped and we're being told, no, you're not in the land of the free, you're actually our guest and you can only do what we say you want to do. People that have lived their entire lives feeling like they can do these things are standing up for themselves. And, unfortunately, that's what they're relying on to try to use as an excuse to brutalize the population into submission. And, it's what we're seeing in Minnesota right now. And it's just like sickening. It's really fucking sickening. It's like, this is state mandated fucking execution that occurred this past weekend in Minnesota. Yeah. And it's just, this is me at like the calmest I've been in the past couple of days. I've been just like absolutely really enraged over this whole scenario. It's just absolutely disturbing. Disturbing is not even the right word for it. There's stronger words that need to be invented for it. Yeah. But I guess to your original point though, I will say though, this is something that, I talk about a lot with my wife and my friends here that are all very involved in, what's going on in the world right now and trying to take a stand. Obviously being in Chicago, ICE was here. They left, a couple of months ago, but they were here for a while and there's no guarantee they won't come back. Further emboldened by what they've been able to get away with in Minnesota, which obviously is a way for them to test, those waters. What can we actually get away with and still maintain enough? I think the majority of people in this country seem to be pretty fucking fed up with this. But obviously there's still enough people that, they can maintain their base and maintain their position of power because they have this sort of like minimum viable, amount of people to keep them there. And obviously they're working to, fuck with the elections. The DOJ has told Minnesota, like, basically, we'll remove ICE if you give us all of their private voter data. Yeah. That's been going on, which is really alarming. But anyway, what I was going to say, though, is, so we go to a lot of protests here and all this stuff. And oftentimes, we are sort of taken aback by when you go to these protests, it's like everybody has a different sign. It's like for some different kind of cause. Yeah. And, and that's what the right is so fucking good at and how they're able to constantly push their agenda. And it's, obviously not the answer to the question of how did we get here, but a big part of it is that, this MAGA mentality on the right that's been stewing and building for a very long time. They've been very patient with pushing their agenda forward, and they've done it step by step. And they pick one thing at a time, and the whole group focuses on just that one thing. They get it done. They move to the next thing, focus all on that and move, but yeah, on the left, it's like, I agree. It seems like the majority of like us as a mass organism kind of want everything all at once, or else it's not good enough, and we really need to start picking and focusing on certain things. Cause yes, I agree. This larger question of identity and the way that, different groups have been, put in positions of submission or dominance over or beneath others throughout the country. And all this is like a major, major issue and something that really needs to be addressed. But I don't think we're going to be able to take any kind of like meaningful action on that front until we get an administration in place that is, interested in doing that.
Well, yeah, I think when I like, so I was like thinking about how to like broach this, because this isn't me trying to put blame on anyone or anything, but they're like the fragmented nature of the left has basically but has put us in a position where we are now susceptible to all this craziness.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's created an opportunity that they have fully taken advantage of.
Yeah. And so I was thinking about this, and because because I do listen to Joe Rogan, and I listen to Bill Maher, and I listen to Howard Stern, and I listen to all of the like kind of king of the mountain talking heads in social political spaces, right?
Yeah, the most divisive voices out there right now. Yeah,
exactly. And they all have their own angle. And I was thinking about this, and I think about, because like, here's the reality. Joe Rogan was about as left gets until a few years ago. And he stepped away. And now Bill Maher has vilified himself with the left in certain ways, because, and I'm like, and I think to myself, I'm like, why is this happening? Right? Because people who were once celebrated are no longer being celebrated.
Trump was a Democrat for most of his life.
And Trump was, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And I think to myself, and I'm like,
I mean, he doesn't believe in anything. He was,
well, no, that's the thing.
It was convenient for him to be a Democrat for a long time.
He's an opportunist. So I was thinking about something, and I have a weird metaphor to create here. I suppose I don't know if this is a metaphor or not, but I'm going to tell a little personal story. I do have a shirt of relevance this week. This is an important thing to think about, and I want people to understand that this is just me proposing a question more than anything else. So, and this will help create some insight. I don't know. I could just be completely off base here. We'll see what happens. I can't wait to hear your reaction to this.
Yeah.
Because there are a few things that constantly get brought up when people talk about their unhappiness with the left and why they are drifting away, right? And I think, if to be totally honest, as the strength of the right comes from the fact that the left is losing important voices, right? I think that's right. People blame Joe Rogan for Trump winning the election because he had him on his show, right? Like, I can't tell you how many people have said that to me. Here's the ironic part.
He did also refuse to have Kamala Harris on his show.
That is not true. That is not true. He invited her on the show. She refused. Yeah.
Gotcha.
See? And this is the kind of shit that happens, right? People like to twist the story up. He told her.
Well, he did also say there was no chance in hell he would ever vote for her.
Yeah.
Which I think is an insane position.
But he's allowed to have that position, though.
Sure. I think it's a crazy one. Yeah.
So here's the thing. He said, because he told Trump the same thing. He's like, you're both invited on my show, but you both have to come here, neutral ground. This isn't a talk show like you're going on CBS or any of that bullshit. You come here, the format stays the same. Long form conversation, everything's on the table. That was the deal. Trump said, okay. And Kamala said, no, thank you. She was like, you have to come to New York. We're only going to do an hour. And so he was like, if you play by, this is my show, you play by my rules. That was the deal. And she refused. So, but, the point being, right, is the messaging gets really muddy on the left, right? And so I'm gonna create a scenario for you. So when I was growing up, when I was a kid, I had a really rough childhood, like a really, really rough childhood, like domestic abuse, food stamps. I lived in a house that didn't have running water for a while, drugs, violence, the whole 9 yards, right? This is dark stuff. And when I was like 10 or 11 years old, I discovered hip hop. I discovered Nas, Wu-Tang, Mobb Deep, like all that, like the classic East Coast, like gritty rap, right? For the first time in my life, I could relate to something. I could identify with something. So much so that an 11-year-old white kid was walking around in Wu wear and FUBU and basically lived on the basketball court because I saw those guys normalized what it was like to grow up poor and in really, like dire situations. But they also presented strength out of it. And so as a coping mechanism for me, I bought in to that urban presentation, even though I was a kid that lived in a trailer park in the hills of upstate New York. I identified with Black street culture. Now, if I was to take it so far, I know this might sound absurd, right? But if I was to take it so far, if I bought, like, if I was being totally honest, like, if I was to look in the mirror, I saw a young Black kid. I had cornrows at one point, the whole 9 yards. I saw a young Black kid trying to get out of a really shitty situation, right? Now, if I took it so far as to go blackface, or if there was some sort of medical operation that allowed me to darken the pigment of my skin so that I could buy into this whole identity that I was portraying, right? One, that sounds insane, but there are parallels, right? Now, 30 years later, this is before social media existed. This is the dawn of the internet, right? But now, if there were pictures of me as a 13-year-old kid in a FUBU jersey in blackface because I wanted so badly to be one of those thugs that said, you're not going to fucking hold me down no matter how fucked up my circumstances are. And there were pictures of that. And 30 years later, those pictures made their way onto the internet. Would I be celebrated for living my truest self, or would I be canceled? Now, if you saw those pictures, you wouldn't have the context that I just presented to you. So now, which cause do I fall into? Am I an identity champion, or am I a social pariah that doesn't have any tact, right? It's a weird thing to think about, but when you think about the left, especially 10 years ago, cancel culture was all the rage. And then you fast forward, and we are championing identity truth tellers, whatever, right? You identify as whatever you identify as. We want you to be your true self. The conflict of how things are presented versus how things are, the compassion, I suppose, or the allowance of certain things contradict each other often. And that's where it gets really messy. And I think that's why a lot of people have lost faith in the compassionate party that once was the Democrats, because one day it's this, the next day it's that, all under the guise of we're championing the underdog, so to speak, right? And in that sense, I feel like a lot of people have become alienated by what is really going on over there. And the byproduct of that is now you have this other side that is like, they have no idea what the fuck's going on. Now's our opportunity to strike. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I mean,
yeah, I absolutely get what you're saying here. Yeah. No, and I mean, like, anytime a group starts like purity testing its members, that's always trouble. And that's something that, like, with, look, like, cancel culture started from a good place. It was Harvey Weinstein. It was all like incredible, like, sexual predators that had a whole system propping them up. And it was a very good thing that those things got taken down. And I think it's easy to vilify cancel culture because, yes, it did go overboard at a certain point, but I think most of what was accomplished through that was actually, like, pretty positive. It was unimpeachably positive. Yeah.
But but now this is where the parallels lie, right? Both sides are more similar than they are different, because everything starts with good intentions more often than not, and then they veer off course at some point. There's nothing wrong with saying we need to get the dangerous illegal immigrants out of the country, but there is something very wrong with saying we're just going to start rounding up every motherfucker that doesn't look white or doesn't look like they belong here. There's something,
but I think that's a group specifically using good intentions as a false flag.
Sure.
You know, that's not, I don't think they ever gave a shit about getting the immigrants out of here. They gave a shit about subduing blue states into fucking submission.
Yeah. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I think you don't have one without the other. Like when a cause goes too far, that's when you start to lose people. And now you're going to see it here. You're going to see it if we do have an election at the end of this year. You're going to see that the cause went too far, and the Republicans should hopefully lose a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the point that I'm trying to make, and it's the same thing with like the transgender cause went too far. Like allowing children to perform medical procedures seems a bit too far to me.
Well, that's not true. They've never done surgery on children. That's completely false. Some children have
I didn't say surgery, hormone treatment, even that, because like if I was to say, oh, if someone told me that there was a pill that would make my skin turn blacker, and I was a 13-year-old kid who didn't know any better, I would say, yeah, sure, let's try it out and let's see what happens. You know, I think that, I look at my child and he changes. He changes as a person every 6 months. And so there are phases, and like, and I'm not denying people that believe what they believe about themselves, but there should maybe be some boundaries set as far as like how far we go with something, or allowing adjusted people to fight the opposite sex or play in sports, whatever, right? Yeah. If I had a daughter and some man who was displaying himself as a woman was playing sports and beat the shit out of my daughter, I would fucking want to kill him. That's a weird place to live in, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know how many transgender athletes there are in the United States?
There's a handful.
Like a small handful.
I know, but those things I know it's small, but it doesn't matter. It's the fact that those ideas get pushed onto people. And they say we should allow this, even though there's only 20 of them. Just the notion of saying that we should allow this alienates people. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what the numbers are. It's the fact that it's being talked about. Where it's like, hey guys, maybe when a cause goes too far, right? Where it's like, well, maybe there should be some boundaries that we establish to keep other, like, here's an interesting.
I kind of fundamentally disagree that like the cause has gone too far. I think people have created highly exaggerated scenarios like my daughter getting beat up by a transgender athlete to convince us that the cause has gone too far, when I don't think it has.
But I mean,
and that's now you're vilifying this. No. I'm the argument, I should say, is vilifying this like small group of people who are just trying to live their lives, and that forces everybody to protect them, that are in that community. And I think that's entirely justifiable. Yeah.
Well, but at the same time, the point that I'm trying to make is that when these conversations start happening and you give liberties to people that are questionable, I'm not saying they're wrong, but they're questionable, that's when you start to lose people. Right? And that's the point that I'm trying to make. And like, here's another interesting example. Well, no, I don't even want to go down that road because it's just going to get me in trouble probably. But the point that I'm trying to make is too often good intentions lead to bad results on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the rocket ship of progress maybe moves too fast sometimes as well. And there's gotta be some like nuance, and there also has to be a lot more like discussion where it's like, I'm not going to close the door on you because we disagree. Let's hear each other out and let's see if we can find middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Because I see it on social media all the time. If you don't think the way I think, then go fuck yourself.
Right. It's all very binary. Yeah.
It's so binary. And so I think that's where, like all of this becomes super discerning, because no one wants to listen to anybody anymore. It's all just, you're either on my team or you're against me. That's it. Case closed.
Right.
And I think, people need to cool their jets a little bit.
Yeah, it's this the lack of nuance and context to conversations is really like is such a driving force to all of this. It's like everything's just got to be like a bite-sized headline, or like, what's the big bit of text underneath the picture, and that's like all anyone's going to ingest. So that becomes the narrative, and it's impossible to control at that point because it spins out. It's easy to push in that form, but adding the nuance to it is like, well, now I have to tell you all these other pieces of information and nobody wants to fucking hear it. Because nowadays it's like everybody's just, everybody likes to pretend they're too busy. They're not really. They're actually just scrolling through social media. But yeah, no, I mean, it does. I agree. I just wanted to mention a couple quick things because that's that the terminology. That's why I said surgery when you brought up the trans stuff, is because you said like medical procedure. That phrase implies to people more than like a pill.
Medical. Well, fair enough.
And that's what if anybody under, that's a minor is having any kind of treatments done in regards to gender reassignment, it would be puberty blockers, which are like A, reversible, and B, are used for a number of other medical conditions as well. So it's not just like something we do just for this.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions is of course a famous phrase and definitely applicable here. The thing that concerns me is that, the MAGA side, they're not even pretending to have good intentions anymore.
No.
I think, that's where I have a hard time with like both sides. Part of this is that, yes, on the left, I think definitely good intentions have gotten us into a lot of bad situations, or things that were counterproductive, I should say. Whereas, on the right now, it's like, cruelty is the point at this point. Like they're very much, there's no good intentions even like belying any of what they're doing. It's all entirely out of disgusting, deplorable, despicable fucking aims. So yeah. Maybe, and that's, but to your point though, that is how, they originally got people on board with this stuff, like there are idiots who are still convinced that this is actually an immigration operation. Even though under basically every previous president ever, there were more deportations and zero violence.
Exactly.
So it's clearly intended to be what it is. And a big part of it is to provoke people into reacting so that they can invoke the Insurrection Act and send in the military. And that's really what they're trying to do, or, basically extort private voter information out of states so that they can obviously fuck with the elections.
Well, I think for, what I, the key reason I say all of this is because, fingers crossed, we can at the very least neutralize the nonsense that's going on, right? But what happens after that, right? That's like the big. That's where I get worried, right? Because it's like, okay, for now we have a common cause. Let's get the bad guys out, right? But then, what happens after that? Does it go back to this notion of like we have, the if the left becomes a dominant force again, do they just continue to operate the same way that they have for the last 15 years? Here's the thing, man. Like when Obama was president, like there was a unified mentality for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
He was really good at bringing everyone together, being like, let's keep our eyes on the prize. And
Yeah.
ever since,
Yeah, he
and
was a
ever,
rock star. I mean, it was exciting to vote for him, you know?
yeah, it was
felt
amazing.
good, yeah.
It was amazing. But since then, it's just been a debacle one after the other.
Yeah,
And
we haven't had a good candidate, you know.
yeah,
For sure. We don't have that you know, X factor, that electricity that just makes people like attracted to somebody.
but it's
Obama
but
had
it's
it in
also
spades, yeah.
yeah, but even like beyond the actual candidate themselves is like, does do does everyone want to get on the same page,
Mhm.
or does everyone want to just shout from the rooftop whatever they think is the most important thing to shout from the rooftop?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. No, I
And
agree. That's a very
yeah,
extraordinarily valid concern. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather have that problem than the problems we currently have, for sure.
well,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course, but
Totally. But yeah,
but
but it's still a thing. It's still
it's
definitely a thing. Yeah.
it's a thing, and what inevitably will happen is some version of this all over again.
Mhm.
If we as a collective can't fucking get it together, you
And
know?
that's and historically, actually, that's generally what happens. Also,
Yeah.
is like the revolution comes, the overthrow happens, and then there's the, oh fuck,
And
what do
then,
we do? You know, and
yeah, what
now
do we
gotta
do
run.
next?
Now we got to run this place.
Yeah,
And in a lot of scenarios, you just end up with another dictator.
exactly.
So
And then the cycle just keeps that, and that's why I wanted to talk about all this, because I think like there needs to be a broader conversation of like, okay, yes, we have to get the bad guys out of the house, but how do we stop this from happening over and over and
Right.
over and over again? That's
1,000%.
yeah.
Yeah, it's they've exposed so many, it was like Trump's first presidency was like testing all the guardrails, obviously, to see like, okay, what's, where is it weak? And then learning that, knowing that, it's like now they can come in the second administration and already having all those like little exploits kind of built in and knowing how to completely exploit them. They've come in and done so in like a fucking steamroller type fashion. But yeah, it's like, we need to plug those holes. Like that's got to be the first order of business after like, getting some sort of control back over all of this. But yeah, it's like, okay, how have all the laws failed us? There's so much stuff that this administration has done that is flagrantly illegal. There's no legal justification for so many of the things that they've done whatsoever, but the only people that are there to hold them to account are the fucking Senate. And guess what? They're not doing shit because they're all in their pocket too. So it's like, this just complete failure of things. And we see judges, across the country that are able to like file injunctions and stop some of these things. But even a lot of those judges have been replaced over the years with loyalists. And, very much so, if this continues to go on, that'll just continue to be the case until they're all loyalists. But yeah, I mean, it's been really upsetting and disturbing to watch happen, where it's like, oh, okay, like they're just breaking the law now and just getting away with it and it's fine. Like I just, it's so disheartening, it really does rattle your faith in the entire system, that it does makes you question, is there even something here to salvage?
Yeah.
Or, is it completely broken? And, for the most part, it's like that's every system of government has kind of always been like that. There's a famous,
but it didn't feel that way for a long time, and maybe that's just because things weren't so out in the open, because like you hear about like obviously you hear about all the craziness that went on in like the 60s with Kennedy and like the CIA and false flag operations or was Kennedy killed by the government, or was Nixon set up, or this thing or that thing, and then it's all, but they're all conspiracy theories because nothing was the technology didn't exist to expose those things the way that like things are being exposed now. And so like you could either sound like a kook, or you could be honest with yourself and say, okay, has the system been broken for much longer than we realize, or was there, how broken was it versus how broken is it now, and so on and so forth. I don't know. It's all very confusing and disheartening.
It's highly complicated. Yeah. All of it. Yeah. Cause so many, I mean, yes, very much all of that. And obviously technology has changed everything. And so many things have been, I mean, obviously laws have changed and things have been put in place that at the time seemed innocent enough. And then only years later revealed how pernicious they really were as sort of a setup for something else, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, it takes a real kind of like American history and like constitutional scholar to really trace those lines. But yeah, it's oh man, I completely just forgot what point I was going to make, but anyway, yeah, no, it's as we were saying though, it definitely, you know, it does raise some very, very like fundamental questions about just the system in general. Yeah, as you said, how long has it been like this for? Has it just been waiting for somebody to come around who was unscrupulous enough to just take advantage of it the way that it could be? Because, you know, it seems like what we're seeing now is that like a lot of this stuff was kind of just good faith. You know, it was just, everybody was kind of willing to play ball and say like, okay, it's not written down, but like, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
And then now somebody's come along who's like, well, I don't give a fuck what, you know, if it's not, and even if it is a law, like who's going to stop me?
Yeah.
You know, that really has exposed all of this. That's what it was. There's a quote from, I believe, Winston Churchill, who he said that democracy is hands down the worst form of governing a group of people that humankind has ever come up with the exception of every other system of government we've ever come up with.
Yeah,
it's still the worst idea on the table. Or like one of the worst, but all of the others are actually even worse.
Yeah.
It is highly imperfect, and you know, and we're really seeing that. You know, I think for so long we've been at peace and things have been good and prosperous for people and stuff like that. It never really occurred to us that this wasn't like a great system, you know, and so it's very rattling to everybody, you know, all of us who have lived our lives for this long, you know, under this kind of illusion.
Yeah.
And,
well, I think I think it works when people are willing to accept that they don't have all the answers.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You have you have to sit back and say, okay, like the Democrats are the compassionate party and they look after people, but there are tons of downside to this want to look after everyone. And then the Republicans are like the pragmatic, you know, business minded, whatever. And they say, well, we want the country to run a certain way. And now excluding this current system, right? Like historically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
yeah, they used to be the party of law and order.
Exactly. Right. And the thing that's best for everyone lies in the middle somewhere. You need a little bit of this and you need a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. And it's how do we merge the two ideologies together? That's where, in theory, it actually works. And that's why the way our government is set up. So that way, okay, well, this person is on this side, these guys are on this side. Let's balance it out.
Right. Yeah. Whenever a party comes in, we get a little push in that direction. Then it swings back. We get a little push in that direction. And, you know, ultimately things slowly kind of move forward towards a better scenario.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no balance. There's zero balance at this point.
Yeah.
And both parties push the other party away further and further. And then you get to this point where now it's just insanity. And it's the greater purpose of this entire conversation is obviously, let's point out the problem that is in front of us currently. But the bigger picture problem is that all of us as a whole need to stop pushing each other further and further away. We need to come together, and we need to listen, and we need to hear each other out, and we need to understand that it takes all types to make especially a country of this size actually work. And we need to appreciate the fact that these people may not agree with me, but that doesn't make them bad people. And those people kind of agree with me, but let's not write them off, and like we need to accept our differences, and we need to accept the fact that some people are going to be a little bit more conservative in their ideals, and that's okay. And some people are going to be a lot more progressive in their ideals, and that's okay. And when we can get back to a place of like truly understanding that it takes all types, and this country is made up of all types, then we can hopefully get back to a more reasonable, sensible place. There needs
Absolutely.
to, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's such a shame that, it's just like everything is through a political lens now. It's become that prominent. There used to be a good separation. Like that kind of used to be, like the three things you didn't talk about at dinner were money, politics, and religion.
Yeah.
And, you could have a conversation with people who you completely disagreed with on all of those things, because you just sit there and have a good conversation. But now it's like, no matter what you're talking about, it has a political angle.
Yeah.
Like even now, the violence going on in Minnesota, there's like people who won't decry it because they'll feel like that's like betraying their side, and it's like, this is not a political thing. Like this is a fucking American U.S. citizen who got murdered on the street. Like that shouldn't be a right versus left thing. That should be something we can all agree, like this fucking can't happen, but everything is filtered through that lens now. And especially because it's like, not that political interests didn't control newspapers in the past. Obviously that was a huge thing. But it's like, even so, it's much more, concealed nowadays in a lot of ways, where it's like, the people that own the social media platforms you're talking on are politically, like Elon Musk owning X and things like that, and Zuckerberg with Facebook. Like, so actual information is getting pushed to you versus different, specific to their goals. And, that is really changing the, and again, politicizing everything, because it's like now even, what seems like such a casual thing, I just want to scroll through and see like what my friends are doing and stuff, has been infected with this. Like now you're also getting politicized things pushed towards you. So there's just no separation from it anymore. It's just so, and that definitely has like fucked up the discourse in a lot of ways, because it's just, it's impossible to get away from, even when you're trying to have like some leisure time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but now it's, I agree. I wish there was a better, sense of discourse in this country in general, that like conversations could be had. It's like, even when people talk to each other now, it's just two walls, just like shouting air at each other, that it's just meaning, it just bounces off, like nobody's even willing to possibly listen. And I'll admit I'm fucking guilty of that. Like if some guy in a fucking MAGA hat came up to me and tried to say like, hey, let's have a real conversation about my beliefs, I'd be like, fuck you. Like you're past it for me, and I get they feel the same way about me, So
that's the thing is like, we need like the average person that, like if you were to encounter someone from fucking Southern Illinois who just lives on a farm and believes what he believes based on the very few parcels of information he actually has, because that's a big part of it too, is like, how informed is somebody? The assumption that someone knows all the same things that you know is a very unfair assumption.
Correct.
Especially on that side. A lot of those people aren't watching the fucking news. A lot of those people just like, they hear the talking points that matter to them, and they move on with their lives. They aren't engaged in the process the same way a lot of us are.
Yeah.
And so to write them off, listen, some people justifiably need to be written off. That's 100% for sure. But there's probably a good portion of those people that just don't know what the fuck's going on.
It's true. Yeah.
And And so like
they just live in a place where this is the only point of view. So it's like, that's just, okay, I get it. That's you just, when I was a kid, obviously there were things that were prevalent in like my community, not to this degree, but just, I guess like simpler, more innocent things that you just kind of took on because it was like, oh, this is what everyone's, talking about or feels or whatever.
It's like the only way that changes is if we invite them. You gotta break the walls down.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise the walls just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and this all just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And that's why I like to listen to all of the different sides, because in my mind nobody fucking has all the information, and no one person's opinion is the end all be all. Like, let's hear this person out, let's hear this person out, let's hear that person out, and then make your own assessment of what is the best options or the best way to move forward.
And no group of people has a monopoly on being wrong. It can happen anywhere. And same with being right.
And so
it's finding that point of entry is definitely the tricky point. Like, what's how do you even approach that conversation in a way that's like going to be inviting and productive?
Well, I'll tell you what the answer
I've struggled
is.
with.
I'll tell you what the answer is. We need to not only do we need to abolish ICE, but we need to abolish social media. Because all that does is it creates those silos that everyone puts themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone just wants, everyone clings to this identity. We can kind of go back to this whole notion, but everyone clings to this identity that they've created in the context of how they're seen to the world via these platforms. And all nuance, all context goes right out the window. I am this thing. This is how I want people to see me. And that's all good and well. But then the people that, may not be on the same page as you get written off. And that's the end of it. And so, but the notion of the MAGA hat, right? This is the most hilarious thing in the world to me, because the MAGA hat doesn't exist if social media doesn't exist.
Right.
Right? Like on no fucking planet is someone fucking walking around in a goofy ass hat like that unless it's for social media. You know what I mean? Like it just wouldn't happen. And it creates the illusion of, I want like-minded people, right? You're basically peacocking to attract the same people as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And to intimidate anyone who's not like yourself.
And like, it just so get off social media.
It's amazing. We used to, because like when we used to talk about stuff like this, it's like you had to talk to a real person. Like you couldn't hide behind the screen and just like shout something and then run away. It was like if there was this reciprocity that occurred that really made you consider that like you were actually talking to another fucking human who is the same thing as you, and that made a big fucking difference. And it turns out, so when we really detached ourselves from that, I mean, it seems like it's one of those things. I feel like, like watching sci-fi movies in the 80s, we were being warned about and everyone was like, oh that'll never happen, it's ridiculous. And then we just like let it happen. It just ran away with it. And now it seems like one of these like, oh, like obvious things to lament. It's like, but it's still like, it's a pretty big deal. Like that's a major factor. Like I don't even, when my phone rings, even I'm just like, am I going to answer this? Or like, could this just be a text? And like that it just builds, it just seeps in and becomes like the norm, becomes so normalized to like not actually connect with somebody. That like that becomes the way that you consider communication, even like on a subconscious level. And so you just start to immediately like, no matter what I'm doing, whatever I'm saying is like exactly to your point. It's like, I am this, I am right. The internet backs me up. So I feel emboldened to push this forward. And that's another thing is like, like you said, everybody thinking they know everything. And it was like it used to be okay to not know something.
Yeah.
Because information, now it's like, oh, just Google it. Like, what are you in it? Why are you asking this question? Why didn't you just fucking Google it?
Yeah.
And so it promotes this idea that like everyone's an expert on everything because you looked it up online. And that forces you to like, oh, well, now if somebody who's actually like an expert in this tells me something that contradicts what I read online, I'm actually fucking audacious enough to question them, and be like, well, actually, I read this, and they're like, well, that's fucking wrong, or whatever the deal is. But yeah, so like our minds were more open because it was like that's how we learned things, was by talking to other people. But now when we talk to people, it's like proving to them that you know more than they do, is sort of the, intent, rather than like a communication and a sharing of ideas and thoughts that was like on equal ground, where both people were excited to hear something new from the other person. And I just like really don't feel that. It's like everybody just, yeah, exactly. Just feels like they already know enough about a certain topic to be an expert. It's like, even when you look online at, not only this shooting the last weekend with Alex Preddy, but also the Renee Good one, where it's like the number of people online that think that they are fucking experts in like police procedure, law of the land, and like, like forensic analysis. Because they've like watched CSI and then like saw a couple videos online. They're like, okay, well, this and this. It's like, dude, you're not the expert on this stuff. You're just like spewing back a couple things that may have connected in your mind, but this is not like a thorough or comprehensive analysis. As people are taking it like that, though.
It was even crazier with the Charlie Kirk murder. Because you have wherever the gunman actually was, and
right?
Like, all of that shit, and like, so there's all these fucking videos of like, well, this is actually where the gunman was. Oh no, there was a trap door. That, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, all of a sudden it's like there's like 18,000 episodes of CSI going on simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly.
And they all contradict each other.
Yeah, everybody thinks they're a fucking crime scene investigator now. And it's like, let's just, again, like, this is another thing that's like, it would, if we could trust that there were professionals, who knew this stuff and were going to look into it, that, we would all be willing to wait and hear what they have to say.
Yeah, but we don't have that either. So.
Exactly. So now it's like, we kind of have to count on those people. And then it's like, well, which one do you pick? And all this. So yeah, it's a shit show. But again, it's like, man, we kind of have too much information at our fingertips.
Yeah.
It provides us this false sense of knowledge. Yeah.
The moral of this story, I'm going to end this as positively as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the only way that we fucking get out of this shit, is to actually have a positive mindset.
It's true.
And I will say this, first and foremost, don't isolate yourself from the world because of the fear of all of the bad things that are happening. Whether it's getting out there and protesting or being a part of your community, whatever the case may be, get the fuck off the computer and go have a conversation with somebody. And understand that they are doing most people, this is a generalization, there are obviously very bad people out there, but the generalization is that there are plenty of good people that may be on the wrong side of things. And that a little grace goes a long way. Writing everyone off is not going to fix this.
Yeah.
Saying it's us versus them is not going to fix this. So go get involved in your community. Fucking participate in a bake sale. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, I'll tell you right now, man, like the amount of people that I've met in this town in 6 months far exceeds the amount of people that I met in Atlanta. And I think that's another big problem too, is like cities have gotten too big and too isolating.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is like a thing that people talk about in New York all the time. You live in the fucking biggest city in the world, one of the biggest cities in the world, and you feel completely alone.
Yeah. Tokyo also, most densely populated city on Earth, and fucking
Yeah. And
everyone there is dying of loneliness.
Yeah. So get in your car, go to a small town, go meet somebody. Don't worry about what their political agenda is. Just go meet them and have a conversation with them. Go have I don't know. Put yourself out there and understand that like there are good people everywhere, and everyone should at the very least be given the opportunity to speak however they would like to speak on any topic, and then go from there and see how it works out for you. I'm not saying like there are plenty of people that I meet and I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
but there are also plenty of people that will surprise you.
Yes.
You know,
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've a number. Some of my best friends are people that when we first met, I was like, I don't know about this guy.
You know, they may be wrong about some things, but they may be right about a lot of other things. You know, like my parents. We don't talk about it. We kind of keep it old school in that sense, but I know that they voted for Trump. I'm sure they're probably very upset with the fact that they voted for Trump right now, but like, they're good people. They had good intentions. I don't think that they ever understood, the scope of what was really going on. And, and now at this point, they're probably like, well, fuck, we probably fucked this one up, but doesn't make them bad people now because they made a bad choice.
Right. Yeah. No, people, people should always be given the latitude to change their minds. It happens. It's part of growing and evolving as a person is, there's definitely things that I believed when I was 16 that I don't believe now, and that's fine. I came across that, honestly, and it's cool. And everybody was fine with me changing my mind about those things. But it's you should allow people that, it's like, yes, you did a horrible thing, like fucking letting this guy in, but if you recognize that like you fucked up and now want to be part of the solution, like let's welcome those people, so yeah, I think a final thing I just want to say is, there's plenty to be against right now, but like make sure there's some place in your life where you're also for something. That you're not just about like getting rid of something, but also about like something that's really meaningful to you that you want to build up and promote. Because I think that's a big way of like, again, bringing something positive into this. There's plenty of stuff that we need to be against right now and push on and hopefully dismantle entirely. But at the same time, to Greg's point about like where we go after that, we have to have something positive that's already in the works and has some momentum that can just like slide right into and, carry over into that. So it's like, make sure in your life that it's easy with how angering, again, as I was saying, I've been pretty enraged the past like few days. It's really easy to kind of succumb to that and just kind of fall into a negative space where you are just like, fuck this, I hate this. And it's like, yeah, I mean, definitely give yourself the space for that because there's a lot of that going around, but make sure, that there's something positive that you're also trying to build up and promote as well. Because I think that'll help a lot mentally, but also just for the future, thinking that, we are going to get through this and we are going to be back on the upswing. We got to have something to swing upwards. So make sure that's part of your life too.
Yeah. So be positive. Be part of your community. That's the biggest thing, honestly.
It's true. Yeah.
The more involved you are with the people that are actually around you and you like detach yourself from this like hyperbolic, just fucking cesspool because if you surround yourself with just the feedback loop or whatever, the echo chamber, whatever they call it, of the internet, and you are rewiring your brain to harden yourself to everything else around you. And if you can just get out into your community and participate however you see fit with the people that you actually are surrounded by, I think you will find that things are not as dire as they may seem.
Yeah.
We need to fix a few major problems. But then from there, let's just reconnect with the reality of the world. And that means disconnecting from all of the fucking noise So
Yeah, absolutely. No, and
Yep.
I totally agree. Getting out of your community. I mean, there's a lot more people probably doing a lot more than you thought, they were doing, or that anybody on this level was capable of doing out there.
Yeah.
And if you just take the time to connect with them, you'll realize that, there is a movement, and there are like-minded individuals who are equally, as interested in pushing forward as we are. So, it's the only power they really have is convincing you that you have none. So don't buy into
Yeah.
the fucking lie.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. It was a laugh riot this week. Yeah.
We'll hope I should have time next week to record a new episode, and one that will be much more lighthearted.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully we'll see what happens.
Until then, this has been the Stroke of Midnight. Yay.
Yeah.